Colorado has one of the highest percentages of people driving around with no insurance. So uninsured or underinsured motorist is coverage that you get to protect yourself and your family. I call it you coverage because it is coverage for you. It is not coverage for them. That would be liability coverage. And so this happens all the time that someone is hit. It turns out they're hit by someone whose insurance lapsed, meaning they don't have coverage, and the person who didn't protect themselves now has no way to really get any meaningful compensation for their injuries because there's no coverage to go after and they didn't protect themselves. This is a client I spoke to weeks ago maybe, and we found out that the person who hit him had the state minimum of a $25,000 policy. This person's emergency room bill was over $100,000. They were really hurt. And it's easy to get those emergency room bills to be very high. But when we had this conversation, I had to tell him that the car that hit him, the person that hit him, only had the state minimum of $25,000. And I said, okay, now we look at your own insurance. And it turns out he had no uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist coverage. And so I said, well, the worst case scenario is the person who hit you doesn't have insurance and you don't have insurance. The second worst case scenario is what you're dealing with, where there's a state minimum policy and that's all there is because you didn't protect yourself. So it happens all the time where you get hit by someone who has kind of crappy insurance, state minimum insurance, and you didn't protect yourself, and that means that's all there is. And it can go the other way too. If you only have the state minimum underinsured motorist coverage and you're hit by someone who doesn't have good coverage or any coverage, you're limited to the policy that you bought. So if you buy cheap uninsured, underinsured motorist, it's better than nothing, but it's still not a lot. And so people don't always understand that by protecting themselves, they're hedging their bets, that the people out there who are driving around who can't be trusted have good insurance, which they usually don't. You gotta talk to an insurance agent about how much it's gonna cost on your policy, but it's usually not a lot of money to increase your uninsured, underinsured coverage or to add MedPay coverage. Those are things that the law says by default have to be on your policy, and you can only lose those by intentionally saying you don't want them. So in terms of cost, because the law says they're there by default, increasing them is not an expensive thing to do 9 out of 10 times.